The sea has always been my only true companion. For 60 years, I've been the keeper of the Black Rock Lighthouse, a lone sentinel against the vast, unforgiving expanse of the ocean. My name is Silas. I'm 87 now, with salt in my veins and the relentless roar of the waves a permanent echo in my ears. Most folk would call it a lonely life, but I've always preferred the profound solitude. The only sounds I truly care for are the ancient creak of the old lighthouse, the piercing cry of gulls, and the rhythmic, hypnotizing sweep of the beacon cutting through the profound darkness of the night. I used to have my old dog Barnaby, a loyal shaggy companion who saw me through countless, raging storms. But Barnaby passed on 3 years ago, leaving me with nothing but the overwhelming silence and my own swirling thoughts. My daughter Clara, a good soul, always calls, always consumed by worry. She lives in the city, an hour's drive from this remote outpost, and she constantly frets that I'm slowly wasting away out here. "Come to the city, Papa," she'd plead, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. "Let me find you a nice place where you'll finally have some company." I tell her calmly that I have all the company I need right here. This lighthouse is not just my home, it is my fortress, my sanctuary. I've witnessed more breathtaking sunrises and fiery sunsets from this towering structure than most men see in an entire lifetime. I've devoured every book worth reading, and when the impenetrable fog rolls in thick, I simply listen to the chilling whispers of the sea. There's a peculiar, almost haunting comfort in knowing that the ocean, ancient and utterly indifferent, is always there, always watching. Clara, bless her persistent heart, doesn't give up easily. She knows I'm as stubborn as the ancient rocks beneath this lighthouse. She remembers her own grandfather, my father, a dedicated lighthouse keeper before me, who steadfastly refused to leave his post until his very last breath. So she tries a different, more insidious approach. Every few months she'll journey out here, her arms laden with essential provisions, and, inevitably, some perplexing new gadget, a tablet, a fancy intricate radio, even one of those newfangled drones that buzzes ceaselessly like a giant irritating mosquito. I humor her. It's her desperate way of feeling useful, of feeling profoundly connected to me. I assure her that I'm as sharp as I ever was. My eyes might be a little dimmer now, my steps a little slower, but my mind, that's still a tightly locked steel trap. Barnaby, my old faithful friend, was an extraordinary dog. He wasn't just loyal, he was a natural-born collector of the bizarre. Every now and then, after one of his long, solitary rambles along the treacherous rocky shore, he'd bring me something, not mundane sticks or worn-out toys, but truly odd and unsettling curiosities. Sometimes it was just common junk, jagged pieces of rusted metal, hopelessly tangled fishing lines, shards of broken glass worn smooth and dull by the relentless waves. Other times, though, he'd unearth something truly remarkable, something that sent a shiver down my spine. Polished, ancient-looking stones, encrusted with stubborn barnacles, sometimes even pieces of intricate tarnished jewelry. Nothing too grand, mind you, but clearly old, clearly something that had been lost at sea for an incomprehensibly long time. I'd always meticulously keep the more valuable-looking pieces in a small, weathered wooden box, a sort of grim lost and found for the ocean's forgotten treasures. It didn't feel right to sell them. I imagined they'd washed ashore from some long-forgotten wreck, or perhaps been carelessly dropped by unlucky fishermen. Barnaby, being a true creature of the desolate coast, simply found them. Clara always asked about his strange treasures, utterly fascinated by the bizarre assortment. "Don't you ever wonder where he goes, Papa?" she'd ask, her eyes gleaming with an almost childish curiosity. I'd just shrug, a wry smile playing on my lips. "What Barnaby does is his own private business," I'd say, and she'd smile back, silently understanding that some profound mysteries are best left to themselves, undisturbed. One blustery, unforgiving afternoon, Clara paid me another visit, her arms laden with heavy bags. After we'd settled into our familiar routine and shared a steaming pot of strong, bitter tea, She pulled out a small waterproof package. "I thought you might like this, Papa," she said, her voice bright with an almost unnerving enthusiasm. "It's one of those new action cameras. People wear them when they go diving or hiking. You could attach it to Barnaby's old harness. Wouldn't it be fun to finally see where he goes?" A sudden sharp pang of grief shot through me. I hadn't told her Barnaby was gone. The thought of it still hurt too much. A raw wound on my soul. My heart ached at the mere mention of his name, a phantom weight pressing against my chest. But the idea of the camera, despite the fresh pang of sorrow, unexpectedly piqued my interest. A camera on a dog, to finally see where he goes, what he truly finds. It felt like a childish, almost foolish notion, but the underlying curiosity was a powerful, irresistible current. Barnaby always did have an uncanny knack for finding unusual things, I said, a little wistfully, a lump forming in my throat. Maybe it'll give you something truly astonishing to look at when he brings back his next mysterious haul. I'd play along, for Clara, and perhaps for the enduring ghost of Barnaby, a small, quiet tribute to his adventurous, untamed spirit. She meticulously showed me how to operate the small, rugged camera. It was remarkably simple, even for an old man like me, whose fingers were stiff with age. A few intuitive buttons, a clear, vibrant display, and easy access to the video files on my trusty tablet. Clara spent a good hour making absolutely sure I understood everything, how to deftly attach it to a harness, how to turn it on and off with precision, how to download the footage without error. "Call me immediately if you get stuck, Papa," she said, her voice earnest, before hugging me tightly and heading back to the bustling city, leaving me once again to the profound, echoing company of the lighthouse. After Clara left, the lighthouse felt even quieter, the silence amplified by her departure. The sun was beginning its slow, agonizing descent, painting the sky in fiery, apocalyptic hues of orange and purple. The powerful beam of the lighthouse began its solitary, unwavering vigil, cutting through the encroaching twilight. I found myself thinking incessantly about Barnaby, about the camera. An idea, half-formed and unsettling, began to take root in my mind. A new companion, not a dog, no. Nothing could ever truly replace Barnaby. The void was too deep, but a creature of the sea, one that moved with the same quiet grace and an even deeper, more ancient mystery. My mind, relentless in its focus, settled on the local seals. There was a small, thriving colony that often rested on the slick, dark rocks below the lighthouse, their sleek, dark forms blending seamlessly with the wet, ancient stone. One in particular, a young male with a distinctive jagged scar above his left eye, was often remarkably curious. He'd swim remarkably close to the shore, watching me with intelligent, dark, almost knowing eyes. I called him Scar. The very next morning, armed with a bucket of fresh, glistening mackerel and Barnaby's old, worn harness, I made my painstaking way down to the treacherous rocks. It took a few patient attempts, a lot of careful maneuvering, and a fair amount of delicious mackerel, but eventually Scar, with a surprising degree of trust, allowed me to approach. He was astonishingly calm, perhaps sensing my intentions were not malicious, but simply driven by an insatiable curiosity. Gently, with trembling hands, I fastened the harness around his sleek, powerful body, positioning the camera carefully on his back, just behind his neck. He barely seemed to notice it, more intensely interested in the last tantalizing bits of fish still clinging to my hand. "Go on, old friend," I whispered, patting his wet, smooth head. "Show me your world. Show me what lies beneath." With a powerful, almost explosive flick of his muscular tail, Scar slipped effortlessly into the cold water and vanished beneath the waves, leaving only a widening ripple in his mysterious wake. I spent the entire day pacing the lighthouse, the rhythmic sweep of the light a relentless counterpoint to my growing, almost unbearable anticipation. Scar usually returned to the rocks around sundown to rest, his internal clock as precise as the tides. The hours crawled by, each minute stretching into an eternity. I tried to read, but my eyes kept drifting to the window, scanning the vast, empty horizon with a desperate yearning. The sun dipped below the waves, painting the sky in final dramatic strokes of crimson and gold, and the darkness deepened, pressing in on all sides. Finally, as the very first stars began to prick the inky black sky, I saw him, a dark, familiar shape emerging from the churning water below. Scar hauled himself, with surprising agility, onto the familiar ancient rocks. The harness was still there, impossibly, the camera still securely attached. He seemed utterly unfazed, perhaps even a little proud of his unseen journey. I coaxed him closer, with the irresistible promise of more fish, and with gentle, practiced hands, I unfastened the harness and carefully removed the camera. The camera felt cold, a little slimy, but miraculously, it was intact. I brought it inside, my heart thumping with a wild mixture of excitement and a deep, gnawing trepidation. What had Scar truly seen in the profound depths? What terrifying secrets did the boundless deep hold? I poured myself a mug of hot, comforting tea, settled into my old, creaking armchair, and with a deep, shaky breath, plugged the camera into my trusty tablet. There were 2 videos stored on the camera's memory. The first was short, a blurry, chaotic mess, as Scar had first plunged into the water, adjusting to the unfamiliar weight of the harness. I skipped past it without a second thought, my fingers trembling slightly as I selected the second, longer, and undoubtedly more important file. The screen flickered violently to life, illuminating the dim room. The initial footage was utterly mesmerizing. The deep shifting blues and greens of the vast ocean, sunlight filtering down in ethereal, shimmering shafts. Scar moved with effortless, breathtaking grace, his body a dark, powerful torpedo against the lighter, sun-dappled water. He chased frantic schools of glittering fish, darted silently through swaying kelp forests, and navigated intricate labyrinthine underwater rock formations. It was a world I'd only ever dared to imagine, a world of silent, unfathomable beauty and profound ancient mystery. Then, imperceptibly at first, the light began to fade, not gradually, as if Scar was simply diving deeper into the familiar abyss, but as if something colossal was blocking the very source of the sun itself. The water grew darker, the vibrant blues giving way to murky, oppressive greens, then to an almost impenetrable, terrifying blackness. Scar, however, continued to swim, his powerful flippers propelling him relentlessly onward, a silent, determined hunter in the absolute abyss. I wondered, with a growing, sickening sense of unease, just how deep he was truly going, how far he would dare to venture. Suddenly, the suffocating darkness was punctuated by strange, unnatural flashes of light. Not natural light from the surface, but a strange, pulsating, unnatural glow, faint and eerily malevolent. Scar seemed inexorably drawn to it, his movements becoming more deliberate, more intensely focused. He swam directly towards the ominous source, and as he drew closer, the strange light resolved itself into distinct, disturbing shapes. Bioluminescent creatures, perhaps. No, these were too regular, too structured, too deliberate in their pattern. They pulsed with an unnatural, sickly yellow hue, a color that spoke of sickness and decay. The camera, still perfectly positioned on Scar's back, was tilted slightly upwards, allowing me a terrifying view of what lay directly above him. It was then that I saw it, a colossal, dark, unmoving shape, barely visible against the inky black canvas of the deep. It was far too massive to be a whale, too angular, too geometrically precise to be a natural formation. It resembled some monstrous, submerged structure, its entire surface encrusted with what looked like barnacles, but moved subtly, as if alive, as if breathing. It was a massive skeletal framework, composed of what looked like enormous calcified bones, interwoven with thick black rope-like strands that pulsed with the same eerie, malevolent light. It was a nest, a colossal aquatic nest. But what unimaginable creature could possibly build such a horrifying, gigantic thing? My blood ran utterly cold as I recognized certain, all too familiar shapes, not just the scattered bones of fish or smaller, insignificant marine animals. No, there were much larger bones, human rib cages, eerily familiar in their chilling curvature. And then, as Scar swam closer to one of the ominous openings in the grotesque structure, the camera's angle shifted, and I saw it, unmistakably, a human skull. Its empty eye sockets seemed to stare out into the terrifying abyss, a silent scream forever frozen in time. My breath hitched violently in my throat. A gasp caught deep within my chest. I knew those horrifying details. The specific, unique shape of the jaw, the slight distinctive fracture above the temple. It was the skull of a sailor, a local fisherman named Finnegan, who had disappeared years ago in a sudden, unexplained, and utterly devastating storm. His boat had been found, capsized and eerily empty, but his body had never been recovered, swallowed by the insatiable sea. I had known Finnegan well. He used to bring me fresh, shimmering fish, trading captivating stories for a warm cup of my strong black coffee. To see him here, reduced to a macabre essential part of this monstrous nest, it was an unspeakable horror. Scar moved further inside the nightmare structure, navigating with eerie precision through narrow, claustrophobic gaps between the skeletal framework. The interior was a macabre, horrifying collection of debris, shattered ship timbers, ancient, corroded maritime instruments, the rusted remains of compasses, and what appeared to be deeply personal effects. A tarnished silver locket, a child's small wooden toy boat, a sailor's cap, still remarkably preserved, defying the ravages of time and water. And then, with a jolt that sent a violent tremor through my entire aging body, I saw it, and my heart stopped dead in my chest. Barnaby's collar, his old worn leather collar, still bearing the faded, water-stained tag with his name and my Lighthouse address. A powerful, overwhelming wave of nausea washed over me, threatening to consume me whole. Barnaby. My loyal, gentle, beloved Barnaby. He hadn't just found these things by chance. He had specifically brought them back from this unspeakable place, from this terrifying, living nest. The presents he used to leave so innocently on the porch. He hadn't just discovered them. He'd been bravely venturing into the very lair of whatever monstrous entity built this horrifying thing. Had he been desperately trying to tell me something? Had he been trying, in his own silent way, to warn me of the unspeakable evil lurking beneath the waves? My grief for Barnaby, which had been a dull, constant ache, now erupted into a searing, unbearable pain, instantly mixed with a furious, ice-cold anger that burned in my veins. Whatever built this nest, whatever had brutally taken Finnegan, whatever had cruelly taken my cherished Barnaby, it was still out there, lurking in the unimaginable depths. Scar paused, his sleek body tensing, his head cocked to one side, as if intently listening to some unseen sound. From the speakers, a guttural, wet, horrifying sound emerged. A low, grinding rumble, followed by a series of sharp, sickening clicking noises, like enormous, jagged stones being dragged across the seabed. It was a sound of immense ancient power, terrifyingly primal and undeniably predatory. The camera blurred violently as Scar suddenly darted forward, pressing himself tightly against one of the bony, calcified walls, seeking desperate cover. Through a narrow, jagged gap, I saw it, a shape too vast, too alien to comprehend, moving with horrifying grace through the pulsing, yellow-lit depths of the nest. All I could clearly make out were two massive, grotesquely clawed appendages, each ending in a cluster of jagged, razor-sharp hooks, like the limbs of some colossal deep-sea crustacean, but infinitely more sinister, more malevolent. They were iridescent, shimmering with the same sickly yellow light that permeated the entire vile nest. The creature moved with a terrifying slowness, its immense body scraping with an agonizing sound against the calcified walls, sending sickening shudders through the entire skeletal structure. It made another of those chilling, clicking, grinding noises, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very water itself, a sound of hunger and pure, unadulterated malice. It was hunting mercilessly for Scar. Scar remained utterly, terrifyingly still. a dark, motionless shadow against the even darker, bone-encrusted background, his intelligence evident in his absolute, unwavering stillness. The creature's immense appendages swept slowly through the water, coming unnervingly, dangerously close to Scar's precarious hiding place. The tension was unbearable, a crushing weight. My heart hammered wildly against my ribs, its frantic beat echoing the terrifying, dead silence emanating from the footage. Then, with a sudden, powerful surge, Scar burst explosively from his hiding spot, propelling himself with incredible force out of the horrifying nest through one of the larger openings. The creature reacted instantly, its massive hooked claws lashing out violently, stirring the water into a chaotic, churning maelstrom. But Scar was faster, a dark, fleeting streak disappearing rapidly into the vast, open ocean. The very last thing I saw in that horrifying video was the shimmering, predatory movement of the creature's monstrous limbs before the video ended, abruptly. The camera's battery must have finally died, mercifully cutting off the nightmare. I sat there in the chilling silence of the lighthouse, the faint, comforting hum of the beacon above me, the only sound in the vast stillness. The tea in my mug had long since grown stone cold, forgotten. Scar, my unwitting brave messenger, was probably back on the rocks below, resting from his harrowing ordeal. But I was wide awake, my mind a furious storm, racing with terrifying new knowledge. The horrifying images from the video replayed themselves over and over again in my head. Finnegan's eyeless skull, Barnaby's beloved collar, the monstrous predatory limbs of the unknown deep-sea entity. I rewatched the footage countless times, my eyes straining, desperately trying to decipher every chilling detail, every fleeting shadow, every subtle movement. I didn't tell Clara about it when she called later that evening, her cheerful, innocent voice a stark, almost cruel contrast to the profound darkness that had just been revealed to me. "Did you ever get that camera on Barnaby?" she asked, her voice light and innocent. "Not yet, dear," I lied, my voice steady, remarkably betraying none of the terrible turmoil raging within me. "I'll get around to it, eventually. She can never know. No one, not a single soul, can ever know. This crushing burden, this terrible, horrifying knowledge, is mine alone to bear. But I'm not foolish enough to ever delete that footage. If proof is ever desperately needed, if anyone ever needs to know what truly lies beneath the treacherous waves, it needs to be accessible. It needs to be found. It will remain securely stored on my tablet, a grim, undeniable testament to the unspeakable horrors hidden in the crushing depths. Should I not return from the sea today, let it be found. Let the truth be uncovered. I haven't ventured out on the vast open sea in years. My old fishing boat, the Sea Serpent, sits abandoned in the small, sheltered cove below the lighthouse, unused and gathering thick layers of dust and grime. But I meticulously dusted it off this very morning. I painstakingly checked the ancient engine, carefully oiled the rusty rudder, and made absolutely sure the fishing nets were sturdy and intact. It's one thing to mend a few broken nets in the safety of the harbor. It's an entirely different, terrifying prospect to face whatever built that monstrous nest, whatever unimaginable horror lurks there. But I'm sure I'll manage. One way or another I will. I've never been a man of violence, never sought conflict, but something fundamental has awakened within me. A cold, unyielding, burning resolve. I have my old harpoon gun, a powerful, weighty relic from my younger, bolder days when I used to hunt truly large fish. I sharpened its tip until it gleamed with a deadly, sinister light, sharp and true. I gathered every powerful lamp I own, every piece of advanced sonar equipment Clara ever stubbornly insisted I get. Despite my protests, I will follow Scar's harrowing path. Not exactly, but close enough to find it. I will descend into those lightless, terrifying depths, guided by the raw, burning memory of Finnegan, by the deep, enduring love for my loyal, lost Barnaby. I'm sure that if I go out into the crushing depths, if I bravely face the chilling whispers from the abyssal deep, I can find that nest. I can find whatever horrible ancient thing lives there. undisturbed for centuries. And when I do, by God, I will kill it, for Finnegan, for Barnaby, and for every single soul tragically lost to the unforgiving, merciless sea. The powerful light of the Black Rock Lighthouse will continue to shine on, a steadfast beacon of hope for some, and for me, a silent, unwavering promise of vengeance.